Okay. We're going to wait for 5 minutes to have more people joining this space. So we'll start in 5 minutes. Okay, so let's start with this consultancy space. So welcome to all of those that are interested in applying to the MC Sweden. For those that are watching us live or are watching this recording, So we can introduce ourselves. My name is Cesar Ramirez. I'm the current MVP Partnership Development. And there's Gap. So, Gap, you may want to introduce yourself.
Hello. So my name is Gab Holiero. I'm the current MCVP iGT. Yay.
So, yeah, we've been working in very close synergy during this term. And there's this possibility that the roles are going to be merged together again for the next term. So first of all, we want to explain you how the structure is currently working. So we have the customer flow, and it's me as partnership development. I'm in charge of the attraction. That means I'm the one doing sales, national sales, or I'm also managing some of the current national partners in order to upscale those accounts, or also to have some close communication with the accounts that we're the most interested in, or there's the most possibility of upscaling during this term. But besides that, I'm also in charge of the iGT commission for sales. There are only two LCs running iGT in Sweden, and I'm in communication with the VPs for the attraction. That means I give them educational sales. I track them on their sales meetings. I make sure that they are doing everything that it takes in order to create new partnerships, so we can start having IGT exchanges in the LC level. And then for the rest of the process, GAP is responsible.
Yes. So for me, I'm responsible for the rest of the IGT customer flow. So after Cesar seals the deal or upscales a partnership, everything goes to me. And at the same time, I'm also responsible for managing the commission in terms of these things. So I'm responsible for the consideration up to brand advocacy, which means that I track everything that happens to all the interns that go through ISAC, right? So in terms of consideration, I manage most of the rest of the national partners in terms of finding the right candidates, uh, promoting it to the network, and dealing with the company in terms of integrating them, and then finally giving them value delivery. So everything from airport pickups and up to the end of the year experience. So slowly those things are actually going to be integrated into LCs. So I'm working with three LCs in total actually to make that happen. So although right now we have two LCs that are running IGT from sales to delivery, so that's how it's going right now. But then we have one LC that will be slowly be transitioned to having delivery alone for the meantime. That will be explained later for you to understand. And lastly, brand advocacy. I support Cesar in terms of getting information or basically like the research into how we can promote the current partners to upscale them and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah. The reason why something that you have to know is that in the previous term, 17-18, there was BP MCP IGT that was in charge of coaching the LCs, or responsible for the IGT commission in the local level. And then there wasn't much focus on doing national sales. Those were like maybe some companies that approached us, but there wasn't like an active work into getting new partners. And there was the MCP Finance handling Electrolux, and another of the MCPs handling the relation with Husqvarna. So what was decided for this term is to have someone focus on achieving sales of both local and national level, and then someone handling the rest of the process, as Gab explained. Nevertheless, as you will find out in the as we advance with this consultancy space, or the global partners have been decreasing a bit. I mean, for sure they will be growth in the coming years, but also the what we want to strive for is that the LCs are more involved in this delivery process rather than the MC becoming super operational and doing the delivery for all of the interns. So that's why these two roles have been merged again, and also to give more room to some new implementations. So let's start. Okay. First of all, I'm going to present what is the local reality of iGT. Okay, so when we started our term, overall in the entity, we only had around 13 members, and there wasn't anyone left in iGT, so we didn't have any VPs, we didn't have any commission. We needed to start things from scratch. Well, we actually had one VP in Uppsala. At that time, okay, what happened on the previous term is that they realized, I think most of the LCs were running IGT. So they realized that on the second semester that to have BPs or the traditional structure wouldn't work. So they rather had like a one or two IGT members in each LC, and these IGT members, they were in BPs. They would use like part of a national sales team that was of which the MTP IGT was part of. Nevertheless, not much was achieved. And this was mostly because a lot of the people that were recruited were international people that were studying here in Sweden, but were not the same. So these people started in 2018. They started from scratch. They, as you know, there's a learning curve. So when they were starting to go to sales meetings, the semester was over, so they had to go back to their homes. So at the beginning, our goal was to have only Lund and Gothenburg running IGT. The reason for this is that, well, Gothenburg and not Lund, but Lund is close to Malmo, which are the two biggest cities in Sweden after Stockholm. So it made the most sense to have these two LCs running IGT because they had the market in order to achieve results. Nevertheless, there was a difficult situation with Gothenburg, as the LC was on the verge of disappearing, or we almost had no members there. So we only stayed with Lund, but then we realized that the BP IGT of Uppsala was staying. So these were the two LCs that were running the program on the last semester, only Lund and Uppsala. So what happened is that Isaac in Lund, we had a member that had been in Isaac for one semester. She was a member of OGX. So we needed to give her education from the very beginning. Nevertheless, she is the only one that achieved results. She closed a deal with a company called Alfa Laval, which is actually like a very big company. It's based in the Malmo area and has more than 10,000 employees, and they just opened 3 opportunities. So there was a progress compared to the previous term, because as I already said, like well, there were some, I think, a couple of realizations in Lund, but those were coming from pipeline from the previous year. So yeah, that was a shade of light for IGT in Sweden. Nevertheless, for Uppsala, nothing was achieved, mostly because the VP wasn't very responsive. So yeah, that's what happened. So as also Uppsala didn't have enough membership, they decided to only focus on OGB. But besides Lund, we also have this semester another LC running IGT, which is Link Shopping. And the reason why they were running IGT is because they were already helping us with doing delivery for Husqvarna, as they are the closest LC to this company. Um, Nevertheless, Husqvarna, as you will see in a few more slides, is not growing. So we decided to, or what we agreed with the LCs is that they would also do new sales. So we have these two LCs running. Currently, the product focus is IT. This is both national and local level. Why IT? Sweden. If you are a little bit familiar with the business environment in Sweden, it is a great place to start new companies. So there are a lot of companies that are growing really fast. A lot of them are developing new applications. So they need IT talent. Nevertheless, this is a small country, and so the amount of IT candidates is limited, and also there's a lot of competition to get these IT people. So they can get very big salaries, even if they are just fresh from college. So for some companies, especially the companies are small or smaller or medium, they're sometimes struggling to get the right candidate. So that's where we see that we do have a value proposition, and we can help these companies getting the talent that they need. So yeah, this is why we are focusing on IT. Although the three opportunities have been open in Alpha Laval, I think only one of them was IT, and the other two are business administration. So that being IT or focus doesn't mean that we don't sell business administration or marketing, or maybe for sure if it's needed, we can open opportunities for any other profiles, as long as it corresponds to our supply. But or we need to be focused on something, and that focus is IT, so we can start building more knowledge about which are the needs of the market, and also which is the supply that we have. So we currently have two VPs. Both of these VPs, they don't have a lot of experience. The VP from Lean Shopping, he was doing delivery for Husqvarna. He was also OCP in the previous national conference that we had, and he was involved in, or well, he's still involved in recruitment for members in the LC. So he didn't have that much experience on doing sales. And the VP from Lund, as there actually there were some members, like I think around 4 members, but the four of them, three of them are Erasmus students, so they're not staying, and one of them was not interested in applying, so the LC had to recruit a girl that had some experience with sales, but she was not an ISECer until a couple of weeks ago. She's now about to go on her induction, and we'll start education with her. So basically, it's again started from scratch. Right now, making sure that they have the members so they can start leading them. But yeah, it's also like supporting them a lot with their leadership skills, because well, these people don't have experience yet in leading others. They don't have much experience on sales. So yeah, this is something, education is something that is very important for IGT in Sweden. And we also during last semester we had a slow start because we had to wait until recruitment to be done. And recruitment was over, I think, around beginning or mid October. Right now, we're stopping recruitment on mid February. So as you can imagine, that takes a lot of time. So yeah, that's one of the struggles what we have had. And overall, well, as if you're very familiar with the reality of IC in Sweden, you can see that our LCs are have a low performance, and for IGT, well, this is not different. As I already mentioned you with one of the VPs, he wasn't very responsive, although he received all the education and all the support that we could give to him. And on the other LC on loan, it was mostly the VP achieving things. But there was an issue with making members go to sales meetings. So regarding network management, so what we have tried is first of all make LCs know what global talent is. Um, to for them to know exactly what is the product, what is the value proposition. And also we have started to build like some identity in the network. So during the first conference we had a discussion on which was going to be our identity. So it's IGT moose, because moose is a very typical animal from Sweden. It's cool. So yeah, that's our identity. um, so the way that we have handled the network is first of all staying in touch with them, providing them the information that they need. So every week during the last semester they were having newsletters with content about how to do cold calls, how to approach companies, and like different information that it could be relevant for them. This newsletter was sent not only to the VPs but also to all of the members. We also did some guidelines for on how to use the CRM. Currently, we're working a CRM on Podio. Actually, this was a CRM that was created like 2 or 3 MC terms ago. We're actually evaluating if maybe it should be better if we move to HubSpot. But at the same time, that would take some change management, and we need to first get familiar with HubSpot. We know that it would be an evolution, an improvement to the way that we work with our customers to moving to another CRM. But now, because it is very easy to use Podio, this is what we are going to be using to get familiar. So maybe the implementation of new CRM will come with the next MC term. But right now we're really pushing for this culture in which LCs register all of the activity that they have. So we also have a monthly audit. Like every month, LCs are have to register the companies that they will approach during the month. So they must register 30 companies. So I'm the one that making sure that they have approached all of these companies. So far, none of the LCs has approached 30 companies in 1 month. So for example, if they only approach 10 and they have 20 so then they will register 10 more because they already have 20 left, so that's 30. The reason why we are asking them to register 30 new companies is because according to structure, they should have 3 sales members, so that's like 4 people doing IGT DLC. So if you divide them 30 by 4 is an okay number. It's not too much, but at the same time it's not too little. Yeah, as another thing that we implemented last semester in order to deliver the education to them about mostly about sales, because that is what was needed and is still needed to build a lot of knowledge about, was on how to do sales. So we had this sales development program called the Get the Goal. So this program consisted in webinars, weekly webinars of 1 hour, and they were covering the whole sales process from pre-attraction, until you close a deal. So how to do segmentation, how to approach companies through different channels, how to make cold calls, how to what to do in networking events. So we were having the different topics, and the phases were MCPs, or we also had one LCB IGT from Greece participating. So they were getting knowledge not only from me, but they were getting knowledge also from different sources, from people with different backgrounds or expertise. So that's really cool. Actually, you can, if you are interested, you can check the MC Sweden fan page, and you will see all of the links there. So all of the webinars have been recorded. So that is something that we have also tried to build, like these resources that I share with them, like scripts on how to do cold calls or how to handle objections, a guideline on what to say when you're in a sales meeting, stuff like that, so they can have enough information in order for them to start doing things, which is the challenge, to have people losing the fear of doing sales, and contacting new companies. And we also, besides the education, the Get the Gold program also consisted in the organizing. So every week I was going through the CRM, because every company gets a certain amount of points. For example, making a call, I gave them 5 points. Sending an email, 3 points. Having a sales meeting, it was 10 points. Closing an opportunity, it was 50 points. So I had this scoreboard in which they were able to see in each newsletter who was like the person with the most points, and this is something that we will still implement during this semester. And also we want to make it bigger, so we want to not only get recognized but also get like some rewards. So yeah, and also I had a functional visit with Uppsala, and unfortunately with Lund, because they weren't able to host me, and hostels there are like super expensive, so we weren't able to deliver the functional meeting. But I've been having weekly calls, very close communication. So basically my the way I work with the LCs has been like I'm super available for them to contact me every time. I really don't mind what time is it, but I'm always available for them. So yeah, and something else that you may be wondering, if or some people have asked me, if we were aiming to open any other product in the entity besides in ICX, besides IGT, specifically on IGE. And I think that maybe you can explain why we have focused more on IGT.
Okay. So for that, when we were actually, this was a conversation that has been happening like since the previous term, because in the beginning they were actually, they have like one or two partners that were running IGE. So it was like delivery wise, it was pretty okay. It was simple, but there were a lot of things that could have been done. I mean, that could have been that made things a little more difficult. So, for example, these people, especially on the logistics side, because IGE usually is 3 months or less, um, accommodations is like the number one issue that you come across. So that's number one. Number two is visa as well. So when you have an opportunity that is less than 3 months with visa, the type of visa that we are provided by the migrations agency or the migrations board allows us to provide visas for people that are staying for 3 months onwards. So if it's less than 3 months, it's a bit difficult. So, but some companies prefer experiences that are very short, like 6 weeks and so. So in terms of visa, that's already a problem. So that cuts down on the supply to only people from, let's say, the Americas that can enter Sweden without a visa. and people from the EU. But again, going back to that supply, there isn't that much people that can actually go for that type of opportunity for that short of time. And then for accommodations, it's very hard to find accommodations here in Sweden in general, especially for short term. So most of the time, landlords, landladies in the entire country usually prefer people that stay for at least 6 months to long term in general. So those are two things that are very, very difficult. So you have three issues there basically. You have accommodations, you have visa, and then you also have supply and demand. So in the end, Cesar and I, along with the rest of the MC, decided that it would be better if we focused on something that had a bit more stability, which is why we chose IGT, because IGT most of the time is at least 6 months or so onward. So in terms of visa, in terms of accommodation, it's already a plus. It makes it more manageable. So yeah, so this is actually those were the factors that we looked into, because we didn't have much capacity in like human capacity in the entity. We decided on something that's more easily manageable by a minimum of two people, which is me and Cesar, for this term, and slowly expanding it to the to the local level.
Mhm. Yes. Also, this is also according to our growth model, how the tiers should look like. So far, no one has got any realization. So this is according to the number of realizations. But soon Lund will be able to approve the three opportunities that they just opened. So yeah, and in the rest of the term, actually, we haven't, as we didn't have a VPs until a few weeks ago. They are not done yet with their planning, but hopefully, for example, Isaac and Loom will be able to go to tier 4. Um, so yeah, if there are any questions, okay, we can do Q&A at the end. So now we can go with the current partners. Okay, or national sales. So as I already mentioned, I'm also in charge of achieving new national partners. Um, so the current reality of or business reality of Sweden is that it's one of the best countries to do business in the world. There are many companies that are growing really really fast. There are a lot of innovations. You may know like some big companies like Volvo, IKEA, H&M, Spotify, and there are a lot of really, it's a really cool place to be PD, because you can learn a lot about the business environment. So these are the national partners that we have. Some of them are uh, Gap is the account manager. For others, I'm the one that's in communication with the companies, and Gap is helping me to do the consideration process for them. For example, one of the most interesting accounts is for sure Volvo. So Volvo, they have their headquarters in Gothenburg, and we have an alumnus there who was MCP in Turkey. So he's the one that is requesting every time for every year for 2 interns. So there are currently 2 interns there, and one of the things or the aims for this year is to upscale that account, which none of the MCs has been able to achieve. Last year, we had the opportunity to open one to have one opening at a new department because of the recommendation that this alumnus did about Isaac. Nevertheless, even if we provided them with the shortlist, there was an internal decision in which they decided not to have an intern. But still, I'm trying to get a meeting with this alumnus, as he's a very busy person, and discuss how maybe there can be any strategy in order to upscale the account, because for sure there could be a lot more interns. And there have been new partners. There's Snow Software, which is a company around 1,000 employees, and it has is present in Sweden and also in the USA. We have signed more contracts with other new partners. Nevertheless, there are two companies that decided to put things on standby because of internal things, or because the manager was supposed to be responsible for the EP resigned, so they're looking for a new manager right now, and they told us to come back to them during March, for example. There have also been like some other companies, like one of them, we had two openings. Nevertheless, they moved their operations to Finland, and we just sent them the shortlist, and then they told us, okay, we are moving operations to Finland. So those opportunities went to Isaac in Finland. So almost every month there has been a new contract, but for some reasons either they're on hold or they have decided to make some change in their operations. uh, so yeah, that's why we're just showing you Snow here. So Snow is a very promising account because we just have three openings. Two of them are for IT profiles, and one of them is more of a business profile. But there's this possibility of in the coming months, mostly for the next semester, to open between 10 to 20 opportunities. So that would be a really good growth in terms of national partners for Isaac in Sweden. Also, I'm having negotiations with some other companies which look like very promising. What I have realized is that in Sweden, doing it really takes a long time to get a sales meeting. Why? Because even if you have the mobile number of the person that you're trying to approach, it's very hard that they answer. And sometimes when they answer, as they receive a lot of calls from recruiting agencies, they don't give you a lot of attention. They're like super defensive, and they don't want to keep on talking to you. So that has for sure been challenging, but at the same time that was very interesting because ways in which new partners can be approached. So one of them is a referral from alumni. For example, thanks to a referral from an alumni, I got a sales meeting for March with a company that's Atlas Copco. It's one of the largest companies in Sweden. So there's a large alumni network in Sweden. Nevertheless, it hasn't been closely managed by the MC. So actually, I got to realize that especially young alumni, they have a lot of contacts, or they are working in companies that are good fit to be new partners. So currently, my sales strategy is based on approaching these alumni, and also I have started to use LinkedIn and to send messages to people and to grow my network in LinkedIn. Also to change my profile, to make the use of some extensions, so I can get to know who's making decisions within the companies I'm interested, and approaching them that way. So also one of my plans is to create like templates for emails that can look more professional. So instead of sending them emails that just maybe personalized, but they're just like normal emails, to have emails with more information, with more facts about the companies that we have been working with, which have been the results. So we are able to elevate the rate of from lead to having a sales meeting and then closing the deal. Yes. So, Gab, I mean, you may want to continue with the rest.
Yes. All right. So for right now, I'm just gonna give you a bit of an insight into how we are doing with the national partners. Later on, I'll go with the global partners on a different slide. So most of our national partners are mainly in Stockholm. Um, and one reality that we have here is that our entity in Stockholm is not yet fully operational. So as we mentioned earlier, there were some LCs that have had difficulty with membership and so on, and one of them was Stockholm. So that's why a lot of the operations are currently being managed by myself or me and Cesar. So that is, you have Alatest over there on the left, top left. You have Desenyo on the top right. You have Easy Park, GND, Mitigram, and Naveti, and now also Snow, that are all in Stockholm. So these partners, most of them are quite recent actually. So their realizations were only at the beginning of our term. So you have Alatest that realized about um, 4 or 5 within July and August. You have Easy Park that realized 3 in July, um, and GND with 2 in August, and then the rest are ongoing. So in terms of managing these partners, you have some that are quite active because you have more recent interns, and there are others that are not as active in terms of communication with us as well, because they've had their intern for about almost a year already. So that's something that Cesar and I are working on to actually re-engage with, to make sure, number one, of course, is to make sure that we're managing the experience of the intern, evaluating how the internship is going, and then later on upscaling the partnership. So for Aviva, over here in the middle, top middle, that's an account in Lund. So the history of this, actually, they were previously managed locally, but because of membership problems, so as you know, like, we have a lot of members that are usually on Erasmus, so they usually stay only for 6 months or even less sometimes. um, so the turnover made it difficult to manage the account, so later on we transitioned for it to be managed nationally, with a little support from the LC. So with Volvo, it's a similar thing, although they're actually still being um, s- mildly like maintained by the LC, but it's also a national account now. So in terms of, like, what do you call this, the consideration process, most of it is done nationally for all the accounts in Stockholm, but for the ones in Lund and the one in Gothenburg, Volvo, it was actually done on a local level. So what we do, because there is no entity in Stockholm, that is, I mean, there is no set of people working on delivery at the moment. So a lot of the activities that LCs usually do to manage experience is done by the MC. So you'd have the usual, like, hangouts and like outside trips for interns, as well as development spaces, lead sessions done by the MC. So that's something that's slowly being transitioned locally as we grow Isaac and Stockholm again. And later on, like, most of the operations should be done on a local level. So by the end of our term, so when Cesar and I finish, ideally all of these accounts will be partly managed on a local level, so that the role of the next MCVP, our successor, will mostly be more strategic and more in terms of managing how these accounts are being handled. So yeah, so you'd have out of all of this, actually, Alatest and Easy Park are the most mature partners, if I may say. So they've been partners for at least for Easy Park more than a year now, or more than 2 years, and Alatest more than 5 years. So the others are a bit younger, so they're still on a for if you think about it, they're more of like in an evaluative state. So that's why we have to make sure as well that the management of the interns experience is really good, so that we can upscale more easily in the future. So that's why Alatest and Easy Park are still here, is because the delivery so far from the past few MC terms have been pretty good. And with Alatest, as you can see, they've been hosting at least 7 interns in the last 1.5 years, from the previous MC term until today. So yeah, so that's it for the national partners, actually.
And then something else. So you may also want to start thinking which is going to be your strategy, like which is going to be your main focus. And if new sales is going to be your focus, also how your sales strategy is going to work, because as I already mentioned, like doing the traditional way here of cold calls, it is a big deal and it doesn't give you a lot of results. So you need to rely in other ways. Yes, I already mentioned like alumni. Something that I will also start to do is attending more networking events. You may also want to think about if you will be able to create a B2B strategy, which I think could be very successful here in Sweden, but at the same time, it's not something that we have really implemented, like to use LinkedIn and to create a marketing strategy for it. Uh, I mean, LinkedIn as promoting ourselves as a global talent ISEC in Sweden, using the ISEC in Sweden LinkedIn profile. Why? Because we haven't had like enough resources or time, considering what we also have to do with the in order to get our results. So we can continue with the global partners.
All right. So we actually have another slide that has the global partners. Oh yeah, so we can actually
Yeah, we
go
can
through
talk
these
about the
quickly.
process.
So in terms of consideration, we try to fit it in a standard process time of at least 21 days in total. Um, so this is basically just the proposed way of doing things. So 14 days in total for opening the opportunity, promoting to the network, EP application, and shortlisting. So on the extra profile, we set the application open only for 2 weeks. So that's pretty standard for all opportunities. Although some of them actually are being done only in 1 week. So, but then we keep it open just in case, for like, for backup reasons. But the maximum that we usually prefer to do things is within 2 weeks. So that also provides the company a bit of an extra push to make sure that they decide within those allocated days. And then, so within those 2 weeks plus the week after, the company will be doing the selection process. This can vary a little bit because some companies do interviews with their HR managers, and then they have their interviews with the hiring manager, the person who will be taking the intern. And some, especially for the IT companies, they also have tests. So usually the maximum for that usually is also about 2 weeks. So it shouldn't last more than a month in terms of the selection process. What takes a long time, the one that you can see at the end, 1 to 7 weeks, is just the visa process. But before that, it's already secured that the person is selected and they'll be going on exchange. So our maximum process time that we are targeting for all of this is 30 days in total. But the ideal state that we're going for is as fast as 21 days. Um, So if you think about it, with the amount of the selection process, 2 interviews and 1 test, that's pretty fast. So yeah. And then we go to the next slide. Just to give you a familiarity of the pricing that we have. So we have these three separations. So we have consultancy fee. So as soon as you sign and promote the everything, we usually charge them 5,000 crowns, which is for other people around 500 euros. Management fee. So for us to be able to, like be able to service the intern effectively, we need the resource to do that as well. So that's another 5,000 crowns and a monthly service fee. So the design of the pricing was to ensure that we have a good financial like cash flow in the entity. So, but it usually is defined during this the contract signing whether it's going to be paid like by in bulk, so like paying for everything um, right there and then when the EP comes, or through the through certain periods. So upon approval, you pay for one. Upon arrival, they pay for one, and then the monthly service fee. So that's something that you can you'll be more familiar with once we actually go into that. But this is just for your information so that you understand how we're sustaining the operations on in the entity.
Mhm. Yes. So we also have a co-sales model with DLC. So it is actually in compendium or co-delivery model. So it is already defined on if they help us with doing delivery for global or national partners, how much money they receive, and it is also defined if there's a sale in which the MC was involved, if we help them, it is also defined how much of the percentage goes to whom.
Yes, and additionally for that, actually, just to give you an insight on how long most of our internships are, we usually suggest that they sign contracts for 14 months to 18 months as a standard because there's something special in the Swedish social security that allows them to get free coverage by the government if you stay for at least for more than a year. So for us to be able to provide them with more benefits throughout the exchange, we always suggest that we maintain a 14-month internship or more. To support also the OGX side that we're working with insurance and keeping the like giving the intern like a really good space, like a safe space and like good coverage during their stay here. Yes, awesome. So we can move on. So for you to understand how things are working with the global partners, so you can actually see the map here to see where our global partners are. So we have 2 global partners that we've been working with for more than 15 years or so. So that's Electrolux and Husqvarna. So Electrolux is mainly in Stockholm. We have about 40 plus active interns there right now, and it's managed by the MC. So I am actually the Electrolux partnership manager for Sweden, and I'm slowly transitioning the delivery to Isaac in Stockholm. So previously, actually, some of the interns have already been delivered by Isaac in Stockholm, but these people have left the organization. So we're starting from scratch in a way in terms of doing that again. But for Husqvarna, it's a good case practice in terms of managing global partners. So Husqvarna is in the more like southern part of Sweden, as you can see on the bottom left. It's in Husqvarna in Jönköping. Um, so that we have about 15 plus active interns there. We have 1 intern in Stockholm. So I'm supporting the management in that just so that they're good. It's managed by the MC. So the account is managed by the MC, but the delivery is done by Lin Shopping DLC themselves. So basically anything from visa process to picking up the intern, sending them on the first day of work, and so on and so forth are being done by Isaac and Lin Shopping. Uh, And so yeah, so they're the ones also like creating the events for them to hang out and so on and so on. And lastly, this is very recent actually. So they have opened a new global partner with Schneider Electric, but that's going to be in Oribro. So they're on the left side. You'll find it there. So it's a newly opened global partner. The account management allocation is still in progress, pending information from the responsibles from the PD team of AI. So more or less, depending on the capacity, Isaac and Lynn Shopping or Isaac and Stockholm can manage this account because the distance is uh, pretty much the same in terms of transportation. And they call this like most of the things that you can pretty much do online first, um, with like visa process. So our visa process is done online, and a lot of the other um, like touch points with the intern is online. So that's something that will be determined within the next few months as this account progresses. And yeah, so for delivery, so generally all post consideration and approval activities are what we provide. So the actual account management is done by AI. So we don't like do upscaling and all those things. All we do is maintain the relationship with the global coordinators of Electrolux and Husqvarna at the moment. And we make sure that the delivery is being done properly. We make sure that the interns are having, like their experience is how it's supposed to be delivered and so on and so forth. So as you can see, like with in terms of distance, all of them are pretty far away. But so far we've managed them pretty well, and the global coordinators are actually providing good feedback as well, with how we are delivering. So that's something that we need to push forward further in the next term. So one good thing for you is that the new global coordinators of Husqvarna and Electrolux are very, very collaborative in terms of improving the experiences of their interns. So they're actually working together with us to further improve like first day of work agenda, like the onboarding agenda, which means like the first few months of legalization and so on, and like maintaining their experiences throughout with lead spaces and so on. Like so, um, in terms of the state, like it's very good actually. We're in a very good state of like collaboration with all the stakeholders at the moment. So just for your information, Husqvarna's management is actually done by our MCVP Finance, Ivan. So there are two people handling the accounts because Electrolux usually has a massive scale of interns. But as Cesar mentioned earlier, they've been taking in less interns now because Electrolux has been quite stable in terms of HR. Husqvarna, on the other hand, is doing a internal like reshuffle of structure. So projection for next year is that Electrolux will continue with the same amount, like 2 to 3 every 2 months or so. Husqvarna about 1 to 2 every quarter or so. Um, but so yeah, so the reason why we need to make sure that delivery is done now on a local level is next year the possibility of there is a possibility that global partner management may be absorbed as well by our MCVP IGT. So the IGT VP for next year will be handling what 3 people is doing right now. So Cesar doing sales, myself doing delivery, and Ivan, MCVP Finance, working on Husqvarna management. So those 3 things will be under one person next year. So so I'm just going to repeat what Cesar said. Make sure that you know what priorities you have, so that you'll be able to understand like how to manage the different areas, and how will you prioritize um, the role that you'll be taking on. So right now, all of us are making sure that the management will be the operations will be a lot easier for you. so that when you take on the role, whoever you are, um, it'll be easier for you, and it'll be more strategic and more of just managing how things are working. So that's it for the global partner management. So if you have questions, of course, we are here.
Any questions?
So far.
Okay, if there aren't any questions, I think what we can do is if you come up with new questions or you are watching the recording, you can still approach us. So our contacts are on the application. Okay, there's one questions. In terms of sales, what is your conversion rate so far? Okay, in terms of national sales, I think, well, for both national sales and local sales, it is not clear, to be honest. Why? Because there wasn't like not all of the contacts from the previous terms are there, so I'm not able to see which are the historics. And for me, this is something that I would need to take a look, to be honest, in order to give you a number, because I'm not sure out of the partners that were out of the leads that I have, which is a percentage that converts um, to a signed contract. Maybe it's around 1 out of 10, probably. But also what happens is that it's easier to close someone when you have a referral from an alumni. So far, those have been the easiest way to close sales. But for sure I want to boost that conversion rate using like some strategic alliances, like maybe approaching some chambers of commerce or those kind of institutions, so we can have more exposure to companies, and also like with the more frequent use of LinkedIn, and making my networking in LinkedIn bigger. So that's how I'm planning to improve the conversion rate. Any other question? Okay, so no one else has more questions. So thank you very much for joining us. If you have any further questions, please approach us, and we wish you all the best with your application.
Good luck.